welcome back to Spring into Math 7. I'm Mrs. Campbell, and today we're going to be talking about circle circumferences. Let's get started. Let's start with the definition of circumference. Circumference is a word that's associated with circles. A circle is a figure whose edge is made up of points that are all the same distance from the center. Now, circumference, and you may want to write this down in your journal, the circumference of a circle is the distance around the outside edge of a circle, okay? Now, we can't add up the measurement of edges of a circle because there aren't any. There are no edges in a circle. So to understand circumference, we have to look at the parts of a circle. So let's do that next. The first part I want to talk about of a circle is the radius. Now, the radius is the distance from the center of the circle to the outside edge of the circle. Simple enough. Now, the diameter is the distance across the center of the circle, and it divides the circle into two equal halves, and it's twice as long. You can tell by looking at these pictures, the diameter is twice as long as the radius. Super important to know is that there is a proportional relationship between the size of the diameter and the size of the circumference of a circle. So the diameter and the circumference, they have a proportional relationship. Okay, and it's expressed as a ratio. Now, circles are special in geometry because the ratio of the circumference and the diameter will always stay the same. You're probably saying, okay, Mrs. Campbell, that's a lot of words. Let's see some numbers. Well, let me show you. It's actually quite easy. So, let me show you an example of two different circles. You can tell that they're different sizes and they have different circumference measurements, okay? Now, we can see this when we divide the circumference of a circle by its diameter. No matter how big or small the circle is, we will always get the same number. Let's try it with these ones, the ones that we've got up here. So if we take the circumference and we put it over or divide it by the diameter, as we have in the first figure, 6.28 divided by 2, the diameter. 6.28 divided by 2 is 3.14. Let's try it with the next one. 12.56, or the circumference, divided by 4, the diameter. Oh, look at that. It's also 3.14. You may know where I'm going with this. Okay, so whenever we divide the circumference by the diameter, we will always get 3.14. Now, we call this number pi, and if you haven't heard of pi before, you definitely want to write that down. In fact, write it down anyway. It's really important in geometry. And we represent pi with this symbol that looks like that, kind of like two lines with a kind of a swirly line on the top, or swerved line on the top. Now, pi is actually a decimal that's infinitely long. It has no end. And so we round it to 3.14 just to make calculations easier. Now, using the equations we saw in our example, we can actually write a formula to show the relationship between pi, circumference, and diameter. And that formula, also important to write down in your journal, is C over D equals pi, or circumference divided by diameter equals pi. Also really important to note, if we rearrange this formula, circumference over diameter equals pi, or C over D equals pi, we can also use it to find the circumference of a circle when we're given the diameter. So we can just rearrange it and say C equals pi times the diameter. And we can use this formula to find the circumference of any circle. So remember, the number for pi is always going to be the same, 3.14. And we simply multiply it by the diameter to get the circumference. It's easy as that. So let's practice. This question is asking us to find the circumference of the circle below, and it tells us that our diameter is 8 inches. Okay, so we can see that the diameter is 8 inches. We're going to put that number, that 8, into the formula. So we start off with C equals pi d. C equals pi d. Plugged in the 8 for diameter, and bring this down here. And now I'm going to plug in the 3.14 because I know that's the value of pi. Circumference equals 3.14 times 8, and so I know that the circumference is going to be 25.12 inches, and easy as that. All right, let's try one more. What is the area of the circle below? The diameter here is 12.7 meters. Okay, so again, this is why it's so important to remember the formula, because once you remember the formula, the actual operations are really quite simple. So C equals pi d. Plug in 12.7 for d. C equals 3.14 times 12.7. Multiply those together, and you get C equals 39.88 meters. Not so bad. Okay, so what if we're given the radius? Remember, that's the halfway point, or going from the center of the circle to the edge, or the outer circle, outer part of the circle. What if we're given the radius and not the diameter? Well, that's actually not so complicated, because we know the radius is half as long as the diameter. So we can multiply the radius by 2, highlight that, and we'll end up with the same measure as the diameter. So here's how we can alter the formula when you're given a radius. C equals 2 pi r. All right, let's try this. So this one's saying find the circumference of the circle. Now it doesn't give us the diameter, it only gives us the radius, which is 3 inches. Okay, so here's your formula. C equals 2 pi r. I'm going to plug 3 in for r, and then write the 2 down, and also plug in 3.14 for pi. Now it's just a simple multiplication problem. I'm going to take this 2 and this 3 to make 6, just to make things simpler, and now I have C equals 3.14 times 6, and once I do the multiplication, I get C equals 18.84 inches. All right, everyone, that just about does it for this lesson. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.